Miss April Palmerlee was appointed CEO of the American Chamber of Commerce in Australia in 2017 after an international career in government, education and the corporate sector. American-born, Miss Palmerlee has lived in Sydney since 2003 and is a dual citizen. She is a member of the Chief Executive Women and a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. In Australia, she has worked for the University of Sydney's US Studies Centre, the Lowy Institute for International Policy, the Centre for Independent Studies, and the Potomac Partners. In the United States, she held the rank of Assistant Secretary at the Department of State with the remit for international women's issues. Before that, she was a senior executive at the Council on Foreign Relations in New York. She has also worked for Oscar de la Renta, the Bank Credit Analyst, and the Spanish Institute. Ms. Palmerlee is a board director at CIS, Georgetown University Centre for Australia, New Zealand and Pacific Studies, and the United Way Australia. She also chairs scholarship selection committees at the Australian Fulbright Commission. Please welcome Ms. Palmerlee to the stage.
Thank you, Mrs. Chipa. Last night, I was driving into Government House. Her Excellency, the Governor, had invited the AmCham Global Leadership Academy to have a reception at the beautiful residence in the Botanic Gardens. And my daughter turned to me and said, "Is this going to be a fun night, or are you speaking?" So apologies in advance if you share my daughter's view. But let me just start today by telling you why I'm here, at least partially. I went to a high school very much like yours, a private, independent, all-girls prep school just outside Washington, D.C. And when I graduated, I went to the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, which was established after World War I as the premier university for training and equipping the country's diplomats as the United States started to take its role on the world stage. I really thought I had found my calling, and I took off at a gallop. I was fascinated by all things international, and at Georgetown I learned several foreign languages, ancient and modern geography, current affairs and history, law and diplomacy, and even a bit about espionage. Many of my professors were priests who instilled in me the idea that being of service to others was the highest calling that any of us could achieve. And I very much wanted to be of service to others. I went down to Nicaragua and worked with the Jesuits before graduating. When I returned to Washington, grabbed my diploma, and I headed up to New York, absolutely certain that I was destined for a very serious and scholarly life of policy and diplomacy, or so I thought, until I was offered a job with Oscar de la Renta. I really didn't know who he was. He wasn't Ambassador de la Renta. He wasn't President de la Renta. He wasn't Prime Minister de la Renta. Apparently, he was a fashion designer. And as I found out, dressmaker to the stars, icon of Fashion Avenue, friends with Ralph Lauren and Anna Wintour. That was Oscar de la Renta. You've probably seen Oscar dresses on the red carpet. A lot of celebrities wear his creations. Margot Robbie, Nicole Kidman, Hillary Clinton, Nancy Reagan, Audrey Hepburn, Scarlett Johansson, Sarah Jessica Parker, Rihanna, even, as Olivia mentioned, Taylor Swift at the start of her Eras tour. But don't get your hopes up. This story doesn't end with me backstage with Taylor Swift. What I wanted to tell you is that I was faced with a really bizarre, perplexing choice. Did I follow the path that had been curated for me since I was in year 7 and go into the diplomatic service, or did I take this wild detour and go have a Devil Wears Prada moment? you can imagine, you wear plaid skirts and white blouses. How would you go on Fashion Avenue where everybody's dressed in black and very fashionable all the time? I sought advice from my peers and adults. I prayed, I looked for guidance, and in the end, I decided to say yes. I grabbed the opportunity with both hands, and I accepted Oscar's offer. We had several whirlwind years of fashion shows in Paris and New York, late-night designer sessions, model casting calls, endless samples as he created his new fragrances, and so much more. I was his executive assistant, and so I was responsible for not only those business-related activities, but also for the things he was most passionate about, which included an orphanage that he founded in the Dominican Republic, the Metropolitan Opera, where he was on the board, his prized garden in the country, the Met Gala, and so much more. The key to this experience was saying yes. So that's what I want to urge you to do today. Say yes, enthusiastically. Say yes to every opportunity that you're offered. Take the opportunities that present themselves. Don't self-defeat. Don't be the one to tell you that you can't do something. Believe in yourself. It might not be obvious in the beginning how you're going to tackle this new challenge, but I'm sure that if you put your mind to it, you'll find a way. My school's motto was inveniam viam aut faciam, find a way or make one, and I truly believe that all of you are capable of that. The first reason I say to say yes is because you don't know what you're going to learn. You might not recognize it beforehand, but you'll always be better off for opening yourself up. Working for Mr. De La Renta, I learned that international business can be just as influential as governments in international affairs. I became very confident in dealing with superstars and celebrities, breaking down my notion that people with titles or societal status should be treated any differently. I learned a whole new set of skills, personal and professional, that had never come across my radar before, all because I said yes. And the second reason to say yes is because you don't know who you're going to meet. Mr. De La Renta had a lot of famous friends, but his closest friend, his next-door neighbor in Kent, Connecticut, was someone who just passed away at the age of 100, Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger was born in Germany in 1923. He was a passionate young soccer player, his father, a school teacher. Dr. Kissinger was Jewish, and when he turned 10, the Nazi Party took control of Germany. He was beaten by the Hitler Youth. He was banned from soccer stadiums. His father lost his job. Henry Kissinger and his family fled and landed in New York City. At a very young age, he became National Security Advisor and then Secretary of State to US President Richard Nixon. He was the president's most trusted advisor and the nation's highest-ranking diplomat. And this continued under Nixon's successor, President Gerald Ford. Henry Kissinger was a Nobel laureate, a decorated soldier, an academic, and he was Oscar De La Renta's friend. Through working with Oscar, I got to know both Dr. and Mrs. Kissinger, and once, when Oscar was asked to give a commencement speech at his son's high school, he asked me to write the speech, and then he said, "It looks okay to me, but send it to Dr. Kissinger, see what he says." And I thought, if I had followed that path that I thought I was on, I'd be in the embassy in Oslo, stamping visas. And here I am, faxing, which is kind of like email for those of you who don't know what fax is, faxing my speech across to a Nobel Prize-winning Secretary of State to ask him for some tips on my speech writing. So it got me further along in the career that I wanted, but in a really roundabout way, and that's what I want you to think about. If you've looked at my bio or you heard what Mrs. Chiba said, obviously I did go on to have a career in the diplomatic service and several other interesting organizations, and now I'm the CEO at AmCham. But all of that is because I said yes. So my unexpected options, my unorthodox career choice, it took me from diplomat school to the White House, but through New York City fashion, which I wasn't expecting. You never know what's going to happen unless you say yes. So let me thank my friend, Dr. Paul Burgess, for inviting me to spend time with you all here today. It really is an honor. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the College Council, led by Mrs. Leah Russell, and the executive team for their warm welcome. To the students of PLC from year 3 to year 11, I hope there'll be some lessons for you along the way. And to the class of 2023, tomorrow, your life changes. The structure of your life, which has been there for as long as you can remember, will disappear overnight. Classes, recess, classes, lunch, classes, sport, music, excursions, timetable, exams, gone. For some of you, this might be scary. For some of you, this might be exciting. I think most of you are probably somewhere in between. But your school has instilled you with values as your compass to navigate what lies ahead. And as Dr. Burgess said, you've been taught how to think, not what to think, and that will stand you in good stead. There's an old adage said to be a curse, may you live in interesting times. The implied message in this seemingly positive saying is that uninteresting times are peaceful and tranquil. Interesting times are anything but. We do live in interesting times, or you might say turbulent, dangerous, uncertain, or as we heard so many times through the pandemic, unprecedented. Sadly, some of what we're living through is precedented. In Europe, a brutal, unprovoked, and unjust territorial war is being waged against a smaller country. And in the Middle East, the scourge of terrorism has returned and brought about a humanitarian crisis for millions of innocent people. Other factors in our interesting times truly are unprecedented. Humanity's impact on the climate and biodiversity is resulting in the extinction of species and poisoning air and water. The unrestrained development of artificial intelligence, which in your lifetimes will be revolutionized again by quantum computing, is changing the world in ways we do not yet fully understand. Are these interesting times, or are we on board a runaway train to catastrophe and chaos? Last month, I was at the White House. President Biden invited Prime Minister Albanese and some leaders for an official state visit. State visits have a long and storied history, but they are very, very rare. It was a great honor. In fact, it's the highest honor that the president can bestow upon a foreign leader. Picture this, the perfectly manicured rose garden, the bands, the pageantry, the flags everywhere, the ceremony against the iconic facade of the White House. It really takes symbolism to another level. But let me take you through quickly just a few of the areas of cooperation that the president chose to highlight, because I think these are some of the fields that you might like to consider for your careers in your future study and work. Harnessing biotechnology, enhancing cybersecurity, exploring space, fighting hunger, curbing pandemics, predicting natural disasters, ending cancer, discovering critical minerals, reinforcing supply chains, building sustainable infrastructure, powering a clean energy transition, respecting the rule of law, and the list goes on of the areas where the United States and Australia will cooperate into the future. These interesting times hold incredible opportunities in new and emerging fields to change lives, save lives, make a positive impact, whether that's within your family, your school, your community, your church, or the world. Now more than ever, we need you to be interesting people for these interesting times. In closing, just let me say that my recent visit to Washington caused me to pause and reflect on some of history's giants. I've already mentioned a few: Henry Kissinger, Joe Biden, Taylor Swift. But someone who preceded them all was Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson had many extraordinary achievements. He was one of the original signatories of the Declaration of Independence. He authored the Statute for Religious Freedom. He served as the third president of the United States. All very impressive, but Jefferson's proudest achievement, according to him, was founding the University of Virginia. Such was his profound belief that education is the defense of the nation that he ranked this as his most important contribution to public life. Amid the current state of the world, the turbulent times that we live in, it's worth recalling Jefferson's words: "To penetrate and dissipate these clouds of darkness, the general mind must be strengthened by education." So, to the graduating class of 2023, school has come to an end, but know this: your education has not. Whether you decide to pursue studies at university, get to work, take some time to travel the world, say yes to opportunities. Don't be afraid. Be bold and believe in yourself. I do. I believe in each and every one of you. I believe that God has instilled in you a special gift, and if you don't know what it is yet, you just need to keep experimenting until you find out what it is. And in order to do that, you need to take chances and say yes. You'll be strengthened by your education at PLC, at university, with your family, work, and life. You have a responsibility to share with those around you and to dissipate the clouds of darkness that Thomas Jefferson spoke of. And with that, class of 2023, congratulations and good luck.